join. I hope that the first week of school is going well for everyone, both at the university and those of you who are parents and have K-12 students at home as well. So good luck to us all. Again, thank you for joining. And today we will talk about resources available at the University of Maryland to scientists who are passionate about their research and would like a low-risk opportunity to transform it into a product or service that benefits the public. Startups are usually a very risky proposition. However, being a researcher at the university gives you a very unique opportunity to hedge some of those risks, at least at the initial stages. So there's business advice, training, funding opportunities, workshops such as this, access to mentors. A lot of these resources are free. And roughly, the program is divided into 4 phases of mirroring steps of company development. And this is a list of University of Maryland partners and resources that provide assistance of some sort to fledgling startups at the university. There's also a lot of funding in addition to education, mentorship, and such. There's also a lot of funding available through various programs at the university and at the state level. And we'll talk about those funding opportunities in detail. I just wanted to show this slide that shows aggregate funding amounts. Well, first of all, I would like to encourage all of you to use a wonderful resource in our entrepreneurs in residence. So our entrepreneurs in residence are all successful entrepreneurs who built successful companies, but they also had failures from which they learned. And so these individuals are available to you to connect with them for about an hour to just talk about your idea. You don't have to have a fully fledged idea. If you can connect with them and say, hey, I have this innovation, what do you think I can do with that? That works as well. So you don't necessarily have to have a company formed or an idea formed. They're there not just to provide you advice on how to form a company and run it, but also what do I do with my innovation? Where do I go from here? To sign up with them, you can visit go.umd.edu/EIR2020 and just select a time and day that works best for your schedule. Obviously, due to the COVID-19 restrictions, these meetings are now conducted via WebEx or Zoom. I don't expect you necessarily to see every detail on this slide, but this is a flowchart that basically shows how do I do, if as a university researcher, how do I do a startup? And our researchers like flowcharts, so we put a flowchart, and as you can see, these are the 4 phases that mirror the company development. And each of them is broken up into smaller tasks. You can find this flowchart on startupguide.umd.edu in a much more user-friendly format than this slide. In each of the tiles or each of the steps has a link to that provides further information. So this is just a visual representation on how a startup path could look like. Obviously, every startup is different and every story is different, so your path will be different, but this will give you a good idea of how your path would look like and what you need to do at each step. And we will talk about each of these steps in detail today. So step one is all about feasibility. Your number one step would be to disclose intellectual property to Ventures and express some interest in considering entrepreneurship. Some of the tools provided here are I-Corps program. UMD I-Corps is conducted at the University of Maryland over 2 weeks. NSF I-Corps is a national program funded by NSF, and it provides funding up to $50,000 to do customer discovery. We actually do have a workshop scheduled for this month where Dan Kunitz, who manages the I-Corps program, will be talking more about customer discovery and what that entails. We have a series of business fundamentals workshops, such as this one, where you can tune in and learn a little bit more about a business skill that you may want to learn more about. At this stage, there's also access to funding through TEDCO, called Maryland Innovation Initiative. And the first phase, called Technology Validation Phase, provides $115,000 of funding that goes directly to a researcher's lab and no overhead is taken. I'll talk a little bit more in detail about that program. There's also MDDF, or Medical Device Development Fund, at the university that provides $25,000 to $50,000 to take your technology to the next, to up a TRL level. However, currently this program specifically focuses on COVID-19 devices. So if you have any, please let me know. At this stage, once you submit your IP disclosure, Ventures will assign a innovation manager who will assess your intellectual property and make determination whether or not a patent or any other IP protection is needed. We also have recently launched online mentor platform on the Give It Us platform. And that's where you can sign up and you can post a question or ask people for suggestions and such. So we have various mentors on this platform already available. What we've also noticed is that our faculty entrepreneurs also use it to exchange their advice based on their experience. So I highly recommend that you sign up and post a question or two. Also at this phase, you have access to entrepreneurs in residence and industry experts. And if you are a graduate student, then you also have access to student business competitions. Dingman Center for Entrepreneurship runs one. Do Good Accelerator runs a student competition. It's a great resource for students. So as a result of this step, you would have a yay or nay on a startup, an understanding on whether or not this is a good idea. You would have a good understanding of what your business model would look like, what your target market looks like, and an idea of what your minimum viable product would look like. And also a rough understanding of your go-to-market strategy. And as I promised, here's a bit more details about the MII program, or Maryland Innovation Initiative, that provides grants for technology validation at this stage. So in fiscal year 2020, there were 20 applications, 12 of them were approved, so it's 60% success rate, fairly high. And almost $1.5 million was awarded to University of Maryland researchers. As a result, to help you with this application process, we employ MII Site Miners. So these individuals are not faculty. They're rather very experienced industry experts, and each has experience in a different area: information sciences, physical sciences, and life sciences. And these individuals will help craft the application, and then they will defend your application at TEDCO. And so all of these are highly experienced and very knowledgeable. If you have any questions, by the way, feel free to interrupt me. I'm happy to answer, stop and answer. So at the end of step 1, you move on to step 2, and that's where you focus on startup formation. So you validated your technology, you made a decision it's a good idea to start the company, you have your commercialization plan from your MII, so you know what to do. And now step 2 is to actually form the company and license your intellectual property from the university into the company. At this stage, MII provides the next set of funding. It's $150,000 that goes directly to the company. However, in this case, this is not a grant, it's convertible debt note. Even though it is a convertible debt note, it's still a great resource because it's really difficult to find very early stage funding in our area. And this money provided a lot of companies that boost that they really needed to propel them further into development. At this stage, we also provide assistance with securing space for your company, either on campus or off campus, depending on what your needs are. We help finding CEO, a business partner. Again, UM Ventures keeps doing IP assessment and protection. You still have access to entrepreneurs in residence. If you're planning to use your university lab or any university lab on campus, you would need to go through facility use application process. And it's a fairly long process, and we can help you go through that a little faster, or at least explain to you what it is and how to do it. UM Ventures also offers express IP license terms to university startups where the faculty inventor is also part of the company. It has very favorable terms to the startup and very easy and very startup friendly terms. We also make introductions to angel investors and venture capitalists, coaching, education, and help understanding term sheets and such. And obviously, business skill workshops continues. Also, we're working with some Smith School of Business professors to place some of the startups into MBA courses where MBA students are developing market research and advise on strategy for the startup. So at the end of this stage, you would have an incorporated company, licensed IP, you would have developed a funding strategy for your company. Hopefully you would be doing active fundraising efforts, either pursuing grants or equity financing, working on developing your minimum viable product, and depending obviously on what industry you're in, hopefully also lining up your first customers. I think we have a question that just came in. The question is, does the university claim percentage equity for the startup? And so if this is a startup that's based on the University of Maryland IP, then yes, the university claims 6% equity for the startup, and half of that goes back to the inventor, and the other half stays with the university as the founder share. I hope that answered your question.
That's another question.
Yeah,
If UMD decides at the end of step 1 to not proceed, do they retain status as the assignee if we continue to proceed developing the company?
So it really depends. So if you license technology from the University of Maryland and the university grants you technology and then the equity is issued, then you keep developing the company. There's not a whole lot the university can do not to proceed other than refuse to license the technology. So yes, so if technology is licensed, then equity is issued, then yes, the equity will stay. However, if your question is if the university decides not to proceed to with this particular technology, as in the university doesn't think that they would like to invest in patent protection, for example, then in that case, the university can return this invention back to the inventor, and then the inventor can pursue this by themselves. What that means is that the inventor then would have to incur the cost for patent filing and such. I hope that answers the question. And if not, please reach out to me. I'm happy to connect so we can talk more about this. So step 3 is startup acceleration. That's where the startup is formed. Management team is in place, and the focus is on product and service launch and customer acquisition. This is really where the university can assist with finding space, bigger space once you've outgrown your original incubator or co-working space. EIRs are still available, help with VC introductions and VC pitch coaching, help finding CEOs or executive team members. There's also funding available at this stage through Momentum Fund. Momentum Fund is a University System of Maryland fund that makes equity-like investments in the company. Usually they do this as a matching investment, so you would need to have a commitment from another VC firm to invest, and they will co-invest alongside. There's also a great R&D program, MIPS, Maryland Industrial Partnerships. It's managed by MTech, and they provide $90,000 match to a small business. The small business puts in $10,000, university puts in $90,000, and there's a $100,000 R&D assistant project that's conducted at the university. And really at the end of this stage, you'd have your management team in place, actively fundraising, focus on customer acquisitions, and hopefully generate early revenues. And step 4, self-sustaining startup. You've secured your financing, active customers, users, focuses on market share growth and revenue growth, and you have clear path to profitability. At this stage, we also ask startups to mentor earlier stage startups in the pipeline. Here are some of the success stories that hopefully you've heard about, some of the companies that were built around the university IP, and they tapped into many resources that I spoke about and still do. So you've heard about probably INQ is probably one of the ones that received the most equity funding recently. If you would like to learn more or connect with anybody behind these companies, some of them are still based in College Park. Some of them moved out for various reasons, but all of these companies have used the resources and are grateful to be able to do so. So what should you do next as your next step? So as your next step, if you haven't done so, you should submit intellectual property disclosure. There's a link provided. in the disclosure, you would just say who you are, who the inventors are, and then you can attach your paper or a PowerPoint presentation that you already developed, so there's no need to create any additional write-ups or documents, just, you know, attach what you have. Another great next step to do would be to participate in the next UMD I-Corps program, where you would spend, if you have time, obviously, where you would spend 2 weeks doing customer discovery, where you will be taught not to speak about your technology, but to really go out and find out, do people really need solution to the problem that you're trying to solve? And if so, how would they interact with that solution? How would they use it? Would they buy it? How much would they pay for it? And then you would learn really who actually does have need for your solution that you developed. I also highly encourage you to sign up with one of our entrepreneurs in residence and meet with them. Obviously, sign up for additional workshops. And also, our online mentor program, we recently, I mentioned earlier, we launched it about a month ago. So please sign up and start asking questions. I hope to see it a bit more active than it has been, but when it's new, it's, you know, we need more people to join to get it going. Here's another question that we received. Is there an overall strategy for UM Ventures for structuring a company for an early exit versus a sustainable longer-term operation? Is this something the inventor founder gets input on? It really, so we, as the university doesn't necessarily tell you how to run a company. So as a founder, you decide what's right for you. So there is a, so there are two different types of startups. One would be the fast growth startups. And those are the startups that are poised for fast growth. And those are the one in early exit. And those are the ones that investors will invest in. And then there is a, what I think what you call is sustainable longer term operation. And that's more of a, it's another term for that is a lifestyle business. So you start a company that you plan to run for a good chunk of years from now on, and you don't plan to sell it until much later on. Usually those types of startups, investors will not invest in because so if you will need a lot of money to get it up and running, and you will need investors, then it needs to be high growth startup. If it's more of a lifestyle business, then it's absolutely doable and possible. However, you would not be able to raise VC or angel or any type of equity funding. And the decision is entirely up to you. So just to give you an example, out of these companies, Hazel Analytics is a software company, and they grew. So the only investment they needed was MII phase 1 and then MII phase 2. And that's the only money they actually needed to get the company up and running and then secure, you know, big clients and to be able to operate at the levels that they needed. And after that, they were relying just only on their revenues to keep the company growing. They receive offers from VCs every now and then, but they just don't need that money. So they chose to go this route. It works for them, and it's fantastic. And so UM Ventures or the university does not play any role in this decision at all. It depends on what type of company you're trying to build and what's right for you. So for example, another example would be GelE. It's a life sciences company. They're developing compounds that stop bleeding. for them, you need a lot of money to develop those types of innovations. And so they needed to have investors coming in and investing in them. So that's the type of company where you have to position it for exit. Otherwise, you just won't be able to do what you're trying to do. So it really depends. So do we have any other questions? So we talked about the next steps. And so here are some of the online resources that I wanted to highlight. So since March of this year, we have been conducting workshops, business fundamentals workshops via Zoom, and we've been recording them. Some of the videos have been posted to the YouTube channel, so you can go and watch workshops that have been held previously on that channel. And also become a subscriber so you can be notified when the next workshop is posted. Especially if a workshop looks interesting and you can't attend it because it conflicts with your schedule, you can always check the channel, YouTube channel, to see if it was posted there. As I mentioned before, startupguide.umd.edu has a user-friendly version of the flowchart that we've developed. We've also developed UMD Innovation Gateway with a lot of resources, not just for startups, but also for outside companies. You may or may not be aware that University of Maryland libraries have market research databases, and the link is posted there. We also will have a business research librarian, Lily Greiner, conduct a workshop in September, where she will be teaching how to access those databases and how to use them. So if you're interested, I highly recommend that you attend that workshop. And for those who would like to learn more about Maryland Innovation Initiative, I posted the link as well. So you can learn about the 2 phases of investments that they make and how to access them. And I think that's it. So thank you again. Does anybody have any more questions?
So while we are waiting for questions, I'd like to present the poll so you all can participate in this in the meantime. I appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for your feedback. As we develop these workshops and conduct them, it's important for us to know what you think of them. So please be honest and let us know if we can improve.
At this time, I would like to thank each and everyone for participating in our poll. I really appreciate your feedback. And I believe we have 2 more questions for you, Alla.
Yes, thank you, Wendy. Yes,
You're welcome.
The first question is for the NSF I-Core program, are there different focus groups based on the field of technology? So the answer is no. For the NSF I-Core, the answer is no. So they put everybody in the same, they put people in the same cohort, and the difference is that your industry mentor will, your mentor will know the differences for your specific industry. But the methodology of how to talk to prospective users or customers and how to glean the useful information from customer discovery interviews is the methodology is basically the same. And it's really, really difficult to grasp, but very, very useful. All of the university faculty who participated in this program said that it was extremely useful and very eye-opening, not just for the startup plans, but even for their research. They said that it even affected how they think about the research topics that they select and how they approach it. Some of the agencies, though, do have I-Core-like programs where it's a little bit more focused. Okay, so here's another question that we have. Understandably, most of the startups bring some sort of technology to the market. The service we provide would best qualify as research consulting geared towards specific industry. Would this be something worth having an initial consultation with UM Ventures about? I would say yes. Even if you are starting a company that's not based on University of Maryland research and you're not licensed in anything from the university, you can still talk to our entrepreneurs in residence, and you can still you can still use all of the resources that we discussed. Obviously, you wouldn't have access to MII fundings, and since that's specifically for university-owned technologies, but many of the other resources would still apply. And if there are any, software tools or, anything that, any kind of copyrighted tool that might be used for this consulting project, you probably should talk to UM Ventures about that just to make sure that it's not something that needs to be licensed.
Thanks, Alla. I don't see any more questions here. So at this time, I'd like to thank our presenter, Alla, for taking her time and being here to present us today. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have learned a lot. On the screen, you can see our resources. So if you want, the video will be up within a few days, so you can look at it there. And thank you again for each and everyone joining us today, and have a great day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.